You're listening to The Rich Life Revolution with me, Michelle Cooper. My mission is to empower you to step into your next level of wealthy. You'll hear all the deets, a little bit of inspiration, and real life takeaways so that you can create your own rich life revolution. Let's dig in. Hey there, welcome to episode 46. Create limitless beliefs to build your dream business with my guest, Chantal Dempsey. We've all heard that mindset is everything, right? Well, today's episode, we're going to dive in deep to mindset, limiting beliefs, and all things possibility. Transforming the way we look at the world in order to transform our lives is what we're all about here at the Rich Life Revolution. And my guest, Chantal Dempsey, helps people get there. You simply can't help but resonate with the insights of this brilliant mindset coach and former criminal profiler. Like, I love that part. She is all about guiding clients to discover their confidence and build the business and life they've always dreamed of. Perfectly aligned with everything I believe and the whole goal of the Rich Life Revolution. And she revealed some truly achievable approaches during our conversation. Let's leave those limiting beliefs behind. Chantal has a PSA for all of us. You can overcome your anxiety, not dampen it, not learn to cope with it, actually move on from it. So let me tell you a little bit about Chantal. She is an award-winning life and business coach. She's a master NLP coach and hypnotherapist, and as I said, a former criminal profiler. She is obsessed with helping women and men get unstuck and become super confident. I love this conversation with Chantal. She's one of my favorite people. She's so interesting. I really hope you enjoy the show. Welcome, Chantal. I am so excited to talk to you today.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for having me, Michelle.
So tell our listeners a little bit about you, about your background. I saw a little nugget in there that I want to talk to you about, but I'm going to see what you volunteer first.
Okay. So I am a mindset coach and I specialize in confidence and anxiety, which go very, very well together. And before that, I spent 15 years in law enforcement as in a variety of roles, but mostly as a criminal profiler. I wonder if that's what you were going to
That
ask.
was it. You nailed it. I was like, oh, I got a criminal minds person on my podcast. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I love that show. Actually, it's nowhere near as glamorous in real life. We didn't have a private jet or anything like that.
Right.
So yes, no, and absolutely love what I do. You know, it's completely transformative, and every client is different. Although the issues are often the same, regardless of what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to get unstuck from, but it's always very similar processes. So very interesting.
Yeah, it's like rinse and repeat.
Yes.
I always say to people, like, the problem's not the problem. Like, you think money is a problem, or you think a relationship is a problem, or, whatever it is, you don't have enough traffic to your website, or whatever people say is a problem. That's never really the problem, right? It's our thinking, it's our belief system, it's our frequency. So I loved jumping into this conversation because in my little research here, you mentioned your own journey, which I love to share people's journeys. I love people sharing their stories because it's real life. It's not, like Arnold Schwarzenegger who did this thing, and, you like look up to this person who you could never really be, kind of thing. Like, we're everyday people. Not that Arnold Schwarzenegger is not an everyday person, and that's a weird name just to come to me by random. But I love hearing everyone's story because I think our stories have such an opportunity to impact others and set an example. And of course, our listeners are looking to revolutionize their life. I think you've got some steps we're going to go through today, but tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yes, of course. My journey, I guess what is noticeable about my journey, or one thing that is good to share, is that I completely changed my life in my 40s and completely changed careers then to literally follow my true calling.
I love that. That is what I want everyone to do. So, you said you were working in law enforcement and you were in your 40s. You changed careers, probably changed your trajectory. Did something happen that made you go, oh, hang on, I need to do something different? Or was it like a gradual situation?
It was probably a gradual situation, and like most situations, whether it is in you feel stuck in a job or in a relationship or both, or other things, it's often a gradual thing until one day you kind of have a breakthrough. And I'm a little bit obsessed, Michelle, with this concept of a breakthrough. I would love to have the time, and I will find the time to explore that further. What is it that actually creates that breakthrough? The day, what is it that makes the day where you suddenly think, you know what, no more, that's enough now. I want to change. I want to do something that I want to do. I want to live my true life, kind of thing. So it was, I guess, a gradual thing to answer your question. There's also a few other different things that happen in my life personally. And I just got to a point where I thought I wasn't living the life I wanted to live. I almost felt stuck, and I felt like this wasn't really me. I wasn't being the me that I wanted to be, that I knew I could be, that I was before. And I lost my confidence a lot. And I just decided that I had no more of that. I didn't want any more of that. And it was very difficult because, you're kind of in a very comfortable situation, but you make choices that completely change that. And it's very difficult, and it's very, and it's brave, I'll blow my own trumpet and say that it was brave, but if you don't try, you don't get. And literally that has become one of my mantras. If you don't try, you don't get.
Totally. Like I always say to my kids, you'll only get what you have the courage to ask for and have the courage to make some decisions that perhaps don't make sense to other people in your life. And so a lot of times I think people think, there has to be this like on your knees on the bathroom floor, life altering situation or thing that happens. And some people have those experiences. I had several of them, but there's also kind of like that Chinese water torture experience too, right? Where it's like this drop, drop, drop. And I've had those too, where I think back to in my kind of 20s, come out of university, got a job, I've got a boyfriend, I'm going to get married. My friends are all getting married. Now they're getting pregnant. Like, and it was like this like drop of water that kept niggling at me saying like, this isn't right. This isn't the thing. This isn't like, it's okay. I'm not super ecstatic. Like it was one of those for me at that point, that little drop of water was like the thing I looked forward to were the weekends and the vacation. And I'm like, why am I living for weekends and vacation? But it wasn't this like monumental thing that happened, which has happened later in my life. So it sounds to me that yours maybe was a little bit like that Chinese water torture kind of situation.
Yes, absolutely, Michelle. And thank you for sharing how you experienced that. It's very interesting. I learned to listen to my gut feeling. And this is something that has really, really helped me. And now I know what it feels like. I look back on instances in my life where I had that. And I heard recently something that says that the universe never lets you settle when you're not meant to settle. And I love that because it's so true. You always kind of get that niggling feeling like you were talking about, that there's something not quite right. And I remember having that feeling that I can only compare it to when you're trying to eat and you just don't feel hungry anymore, but you're forcing yourself to eat. And that's that feeling that I had where this just wasn't right. And I was doing things and forcing myself to do things that just didn't feel right.
Yeah, I love that analogy. I think we've all been in that place where the food is good, so you keep eating, but you're just not hungry anymore. I think we can relate to that. And so what happened for you? What did you do that helped you to transition? Because it's a pretty big decision to leave a career that I can imagine you've put a lot of time, energy, money, education into to get to that place and pivot into something else, into your own business, into coaching. How did you navigate that?
It was difficult because the other element of leaving law enforcement was that it's a vocational job. So it becomes part of your identity. And because I had been pretty much doing that mostly since leaving university and had kind of done different roles in there, and it was a whole family and community. And leaving that was a real losing part of your identity. It really felt like that. It's very, I don't know, very weird. I kind of simplified it, but what I did when I left, although I did leave the law enforcement to start my own business, I actually ended up helping my husband at the time set up a different business, which I did for a few years, a couple of years. Nothing to do with coaching or law enforcement. It was a home improvement business. And what I explained was still the same and still relevant. I still, a couple of years later, felt that I was doing something that wasn't me. And what made me leave that was I actually left the relationship at the same time as I left that work, and ended up being a single parent, deciding to set up my own business and literally living my best life in all aspects. So literally went all in and never looked back. It's amazing. Again, it was scary because I had to pay the mortgage, I have my kids, all of that. But I think I had such a drive and such a desire to make it happen that that was just non-negotiable. And this term again is the term of that concept of non-negotiable is something that I have used since to help me get towards my goals, because it's it had to work. It just had to work. There was no option for it not to work. And I had set myself some plan B's and C's and D's. So I gave myself a time frame, and if by then I wasn't earning a living, then I would maybe get a part-time job, and I had options to maybe sell my house, downgrade, all of these plans that made me feel more secure and made me feel like I wasn't completely crazy to take that risk.
Yeah, because that is a big risk, right? When you've got little people depending on you. I've done the same thing, right? I found myself unexpectedly separated in 2018 and subsequently divorced. And I was like, oh, okay, you got to figure this shit out now. I remember watching a video, I think it was Mel Robbins, and she was like, nobody's coming to save you. No one's coming. So figure your shit out, Michelle, kind of thing. And I was like, okay, all right, here we go. Like it's go time, right? And I love the concept of non negotiable. I haven't used that terminology really. For me, I've looked at it slightly different slant on it, which was what am I no longer willing to tolerate? So similar. And for me, it was like, I'm no longer willing to tolerate people who drag me down, who are like an energy suck, who are judgmental and critical and like tell me all the things that could possibly go wrong with the decision that I'm making. I'm not going to tolerate that in my life anymore. I love that you mentioned the non-negotiable. And if we look at that in terms of money, like you have a non-negotiable financial target by a certain date. And if you don't get there, maybe there's other options. Like you mentioned, maybe it's like get a part-time job or downsize your house or, whatever it is. Because, I talk to a lot of people who are like, oh, I'd love to, leave my job and do all these things, but I have A, B, and C responsibilities. And like, I don't know how I could ever do that. You can, but you have to decide. And like you mentioned, you have to have these non-negotiables. So tell us some non-negotiables that you had when you were transitioning in this time of your life.
Yeah, so some non-negotiables where I have to pay my mortgage, I have to feed my kids, things that holidays and things like that could wait. But these were this is how much I need to make. And, I did have a plan, and I did have a little bit of money that I could start with to get me going. But the non-negotiable, mostly more strategically, was this has got to work. I have to make this work, and I had a deadline, and I can't remember by how long it was. I think it was maybe 12 or 18 months, but that was going to be. I had to make a living properly by then, and I had a figure in mind of how much I needed to make, and I was going to get everything to make that happen. I was going to do everything, and I did. And actually, one of the things that I remember, it was a tough time. I worked probably until midnight most nights. I worked every other weekend that I didn't have my kids for all weekend. It was a hard time, but you know what, Michelle? Actually, because I was so motivated and I was so driven and I wanted it so badly, it didn't feel like an effort. It really didn't feel like an effort.
Yeah, that's being in flow.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, like this is what you want to do. It doesn't feel like work. I've done that too. When I found myself on my own, I worked a lot. I would work from like sun up to sundown. Like I worked on the weekends. I basically had my business and I was working like I had about 3 full-time jobs kind of thing. I became a master at multitasking. And I also explained to my kids, like, it's go time. So you have to contribute too. You're going to have to learn to cook. You're going to have to learn to do some things around the house. Like, we all got to pitch in and figure this stuff out. And what I found was my kids saw the reasons why I was doing what I was doing. So, like, I'm not shy to work. Like doing is my go-to. It's my comfort zone. Feel like I can outdo a lot of people. And I think a lot of times in the past, my kids saw me working and they saw it as well, mom's not here kind of situation. Versus now it was like, oh, we're all in this together. So it changed the perspective. And I think that if you're looking to make a significant change in your life, you got to get people on board. We can't do it alone. It takes a village to do these things, and you've got to get the right people, the right support, the right guidance, the cheerleaders, all of the things, because most likely you're making a big jump.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about like what gets in the way when you're working with people. Obviously, you work with people to change their lives. What gets in the way of their progress?
So, quite often, the belief that they can't do it, the limiting belief that they can't do it. For example, somebody who feels anxiety will have that limiting belief that they can learn maybe to manage it, but they can't overcome it. And this is wrong. You can completely overcome anxiety. Not many people know this, but you can. You can absolutely overcome it because you're not born with it. This is a learned behavior. So it can be unlearned, it can be deprogrammed, and you can reprogram instead confidence, self belief, self esteem, strength, all of these things. So my first job when I work with a client is to really get them to understand that they have everything they need already. And it's just about unlocking those resources, get them to really believe in themselves, believe that they can get to it. I always say, I promise you, you can. I can't promise that they will because I'm not in their head and that's their work, but I promise that they can because they can and I know they can. So this is the first part of what we do, really believing that and instilling that belief. Once you have the belief, then you can start working on that. My purpose, if you like, is to get them into flow. That we were talking about this, right? That drive, that motivation, because I know that this is what is going to get you the work done. That's what's going to make you want to do it and keep at it and keep the consistency. So that's it. The worst hurdle is that limiting belief. Once that's overcome, then everything becomes so much easier.
I love this. So you mentioned anxiety. I have a couple of people in my life who have an experience of anxiety. And one thing you just said there really stuck out is like, this is a learned behavior and you can remove it from your experience. I think about one person in particular who kind of owns it like an identity. Like, oh, I have anxiety. Like, this is just how I am. So has created strategies to deal with it, but I think that's an important piece, right? That we could have a belief that this is something we're going to carry around for the rest of our lives. And that doesn't have to be true. That's so interesting.
Exactly. And and I want that for everyone, Michelle, because there are so many people who live like this, like you say, who think, oh, that's just the way I am, and it doesn't have to be. You can completely get rid of it. You can.
Yeah. That's a really important point. So, one of the things that I would invite listeners to do is like think about these things that you think are just how it is. I have this thing, or I do this thing, or I have anxiety, or I am overwhelmed. I remember having a conversation with a friend who was like, I'm just so overwhelmed, and I said, overwhelm is a decision. You're allowing yourself to be overwhelmed. And she got really angry with me. And I might have said it too bluntly. I don't know, but it is a decision. Sure, these things, they do have physical manifestations. My daughter gets anxiety. She gets like really sweaty palms. So they will have physical manifestations in our lives. But I think that point that you brought up is like the people that I know with anxiety, I don't even know that they believe it's possible to get rid of. I think this is something they think they're going to have for the rest of their lives. So interesting. Oh my God. That was like my aha for the episode. Thank you so much, Chantal. It's amazing. So, one other thing that I have in my notes is the concept of abundance. And you said, I started noticing abundance everywhere around me. And that is a really important statement, I think. We live in a world, and a lot of our conditioning is on lack. There's not enough. Not enough money, not enough food, not enough places to live, not enough whatever.
Yes, the concept of abundance. I heard that in this coaching program that I'm on, and it talks about, because we all live in scarcity, right? Like what you were saying, you don't have enough money, you don't do this, you don't have enough of that, you don't have. But actually look at what you have and what there is a lot of. And when you start having that mindset and noticing all the things that there are around and there are in abundance, then you can shift that mindset to money and start applying it to money. So for me, for example, when I look around, I see there's a lot of trees. I live near forests, and I see an abundance of trees. I see an abundance of plants and flowers and birds. And I've got an abundance of books and all of these. And then you can start swiftly shifting that into money. And, when there is an abundance of a lot of things, then you can also have an abundance of money and other things. Does that make sense?
Totally, totally. Like I said, often people they're conditioned just by our society to focus on what they don't have enough of. Part of like consumerism, just keep adding more and more and more. And to me, the game changer is like having the gratitude and actually acknowledging what you do have. And it doesn't have to be about like what you're working on or working for or whatever, right? Like you said, it's like there's an abundance of trees. There might be an abundance of rain or snow. Like it might not be exactly what you want, but it is all around us. And one concept that I really love is the law of reciprocity, that there's this kind of like inhale and exhale, like this natural rhythm, and it's part of the circulation of abundance. So we can use trees as an example, right? Like trees, they inhale the carbon dioxide and they exhale oxygen to us. It's like an inhale and an exhale, and it provides for us. And I find that when people are very focused on the not enoughness of their experience, they forget what is all around them, and that there is an inhale and an exhale as part of the process. So there might be a lot of rain, and then the rivers swell, And that's like this, like this big exhale. The inhale might have been all of the rain coming down. It's the process of nature, and abundance truly is part of nature. So, did you have like an aha moment around this for yourself where you were like, oh, I've been looking at the wrong thing or focused on the wrong thing?
I think probably the aha moment was, and I know this is going to sound obvious, particularly when you think, doing what I do, but it's specifically in terms of money. The way to think about it isn't, okay, considering I've got so many hours in the day and this is what I can charge, this is how much I can make. This is the wrong way to look at it. What the right way, a better way to look at it is to think, okay, this is how much I want to make, and what do I need to do to make that. So always go with the goal first. So always visualize the outcome first and then work out the steps to get there. And what's interesting, Michelle, is that for the aha moment for me is, and I have had a few of those. It's, even though I this is my bread and butter, set the goals first and then get to it. Sometimes when you're that close to it, you don't really realize that you're not actually applying it to yourself.
Oh my God.
And is that familiar?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah. That's so true, right? Like a lot of people will, like I call what you described like reverse engineering the goal, right? Like if the goal is, okay, full transparency, I just went through this with my own coach where I was like, "Oh my god, I got to make $60,000 like right now." And like I had all this stuff I like downloaded to him on Voxer, and he was like, "Hang on." Like this is where you said like you're too close to it to see, right? Like I do this with other people all the time, but he was like, "Okay, $60,000. That's the goal. That's the cash injection you need because you need to do these things that you are wanting to do. You could get one client for $60,000. You could sell 6 things at $10,000. You could sell 12 things at $5,000. Like there's all these options, but I think our default is, well, at least for mine, I'll speak for myself, is, oh, I got to work really hard to get this thing. Or like I need to find the resource. It's not within me, right? It's something external. Where actually just it's just your thinking patterns and looking at your thinking patterns that helps you come up with the fastest way to your goal. So thank you for saying that because I think that that is a really important piece, right? Like abundance is all around us. And maybe my examples of the trees or the water or whatever is kind of ethereal or whatever, but if you really get into money, and the money is energy, it wants to circulate, and gratitude is a huge key to experiencing a more abundant life. But truly having goals is another piece of it. And what's the funnest way to get there?
Yes, and the thing, you're right, Michelle, and the goals, what the goals do is they set your mind, and once your mind is set, then that's when you pull all the resources. You know that you need, it's again bringing that non-negotiable. You bring all the resources to, no, this is what I need to do. I'll give you an example of something that literally happens most days. I'll go to the fridge and I'll open the fridge looking for grated cheese. So I'll open the fridge and I look around and no, I can't. Oh, I can't find the grated cheese. And I close the door, kind of give up, close the door, start walking away. And then I think, no, I know it's there. I know it's there because I remember I bought it yesterday from the shop. So I go back, open the door, there it is straight away. I see it straight away. Because the difference is the second time around, I know it's there. I know it's there. And so I trust myself and I pull all the resources out there subconsciously to find it. It's there. This happens literally every day. And every day I'm thinking, oh yeah, I've given this example a few times now. And every time I've got this kind of a little tap on my shoulder thinking, yes, that's it. That's it. Here it's happened again.
Yeah, because it's part of how your brain works, right? Your reticular activating system will show you what you're thinking about. So, yeah, if you, I love that example because if you just open the fridge door and you're kind of like, I don't know, I'm looking for the cheese or whatever, and you don't find it or you don't see it, But if you know, you remind yourself, I bought that yesterday. So where is that? Now you've given your brain a job. It's so good. So good. So you dropped in a little word there, which I love, which is the subconscious mind. And I know that you work with hypnotherapy. So can you tell us a little bit about your take on the subconscious mind and how hypnotherapy can help people? What I would say is quantum leap their rich life experience. But I'll let you dive into that a little bit.
Yes, no, thank you, Michelle. Thank you for asking that question. This is one of my favorite topics. And the subconscious mind is, I mean, just so to explain what it is, and I'm sure most people are familiar with it. But so you've got your conscious mind, which is your awareness. You're aware that we're talking right now, and then you've got your subconscious mind. So your conscious mind is like your shop front, and your subconscious mind is like the warehouse at the back of the shop where it's dark and everything is stored. So your subconscious mind is where all your memories are stored, your wants, your needs, your desires, your everything. So your memories, for example, sometimes you might have a conversation with somebody you hadn't seen for a while, and they remind you of, oh, do you remember that day, Michelle, when we did this? And you're like, oh yeah. And it was stored somewhere there. You just hadn't accessed it for ages, but it's there somewhere. So it holds all that. It also holds your programs. So we were talking about the habits and the programs that we're running, like anxiety. Anxiety is a program that's running. So it's kind of there, stored in that warehouse. And the problem is that during the day, we function in the front of the shop, and that's what we are aware of. That's where the light is on, and we've got these things that are stored in the warehouse in our subconscious mind, which keep popping up, but we can't control it. The door is shut. We can't access it. We can't change it. We don't think we can anyway. But what hypnotherapy does is that it allows you to open that door and go in there and change and reshuffle and do some tidying up around the warehouse. It allows you to take the things that you don't want and then get rid of them and replace them with brand new things that you want, that are more helpful programs. And how it does that is, so you've got different brain frequencies that you've got when you're awake, when you're asleep. And when you're asleep, by the way, the subconscious mind is the king, the queen, right? So your front shop goes to sleep, the door is shut, and the light turns off. And then the subconscious, you're in the warehouse, right? You're in the warehouse, you're in the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind reigns. So it throws all the dreams that don't make sense to you and so on. And then when you wake up, you don't remember. You're back in the front of the shop. So you've got your brain frequency when you're awake, when you're asleep, and there's a few in between, like when you meditate, moments when, for example, you're in the shower or driving, you feel really relaxed and you probably are very creative. You get loads of good ideas. I get them when I'm in the shower, particularly.
Mine's driving.
Yeah.
Like if I feel stuck, if I go for a drive, that's where it all starts to download. And I'm like, oh my God, there's all this stuff.
Brilliant. So that's because, to use the analogy, that's because the door to the warehouse is a little bit open. And so it lets that creativity that is all there, but kind of a bit messy, to come through. And then the hypnotic brainwave is even further. So it allows you to control what is there. And when you're in that particular brainwave, your mind is open to suggestions. So to put it simply, when you're in that brain frequency and you hear or you tell yourself, I no longer want to be anxious, I want to be anxiety free. I'm really simplifying, right? But so to simplify it, if you then your subconscious mind will really accept it. And that's where change really occurs. That's where change really, really happens. It's so incredibly powerful. Even now, after all this time of doing it and seeing the results, even now, I'm still, oh, wow, that is incredible. The results that you can get are absolutely incredible.
That's amazing. I love this analogy of the shop front and the warehouse. Like it's just so clear. You can just picture that. And I even love how you said, like, say you're doing something like driving and the door is open just a little bit and some light can come through. That is amazing. I completely agree. I think hypnotherapy has helped me in the past, and it has really helped me reprogram my subconscious mind. Because what I came to understand is like all of these experiences that we have, especially in those younger years from 0 to 7, they just get imprinted in your subconscious. And then you just live life as if that's fact. Like that's just how it is, kind of thing, right? But that's not true. That was just your experience. So, for example, I had some really awful experiences with girls in my like growing up years, like really dramatic experiences. And I just thought that that's just how girls were. Like I shied away from female friendships for quite a few years after a really significant event. And I had lots of guy friends. A lot of my boyfriend's friends were my friends because I just didn't trust girls. And I just thought that's how it was. And I had to really look at that. Like it wasn't really until my like 40s that I had to look at what do I actually believe in my subconscious about friendships with women and how women support each other or don't. And hypnotherapy really helped me change that because, often we don't even know that we believe these things. They can be pretty deep in there. So, thank you for sharing that. And you use hypnotherapy when you're working with your clients?
Yes, I use it with most clients. So I would do a program, and the program would typically use a combination of coaching and hypnotherapy and neurolinguistic programming, which is very similar in that it also works with the subconscious mind. Because it would be crazy not to work with the subconscious mind, because that's where the programs are stored. That's where the limiting beliefs, and that can be the impact of working with the subconscious mind can be so much more faster than trying to reprogram yourself consciously.
Yeah. And I will drop one other thing here that was a game changer for me when I finally understood this, which is directly related to what you do, is that a lot of times when people say, "Oh, I'm trying to manifest this thing," or "I'm trying to like, have this lived experience that is not happening for me." Your subconscious beliefs, like your subconscious mind has to be aligned with your conscious mind. Like if you don't think it's possible to have a relationship with a super sexy guy who adores you, it's not going to manifest. It doesn't matter what you do, how many affirmations you do, all the things you could do to manifest. It's not going to happen because your subconscious mind is not in alignment with your conscious mind. And that's why people need to work with people like you, Chantal, because they have to align that subconscious piece with their consciousness, like what they're consciously trying to manifest, and look at what do you even think is possible and reprogram that. And then you manifest whatever you desire, really. Like it's limitless.
Absolutely, 100%, Michelle. You've literally nailed it right. Exactly that. And you have to, exactly that, believe it. You have to believe it, because if you don't believe it, then you won't see it. It's not the opposite. It is, you have to believe it first and see it, make it happen. Yeah. And it has to be aligned. Absolutely, exactly like you said.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your genius with us and your story. It's so, so valuable. If people want to hang out with you, where do you like people to find you?
Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me, Michelle. Thank you so, so much. And I've really loved talking with you, and your wisdom and your experience. And thank you. So people can find me at my website, chantaldempsey.com, and all the details of everything else is in there. There's loads of workbooks, and there's free small self-hypnosis and all sorts of things.
Oh, I'm going there right now.
I'll send it to you. I will send it to you, Michelle.
I love a hypnosis. That's my totally my jam. I really encourage you guys, if you're trying to shift your life, there are a lot of amazing people out there. Chantal is one of them who supports people because let me tell you, it can take a long time for you to do this on your own. I spent a lot of time, a lot of years trying to learn all this stuff on my own. And when you get support, it's like you fast track the process. So check out Chantal. I'm all over her Instagram, and check out her website. Sounds like there's tons of free resources. We'll have everything in the show notes. So all of her details will be down below of whatever you're listening to this on right now. And I'm just so grateful to spend time with you, Chantal. Thank you so much.
Likewise, Michelle, me too. Thank you so, so much.
So what did you think? Did anything jump out at you? Do you have a solid takeaway? Let's be honest. How has something you believed about yourself held you back? Maybe you can't charge enough to make your first million. Perhaps you're sure you don't have the expertise to apply for that job. Maybe it's undeniable that you will never be able to get that promotion. I promise you, you are so much more than what you believe, and none of that is true. I love living in the possibilities of life, and it all starts with what we believe. I would love to hear your big takeaway from this episode. Of course, slide into my DMs on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn at Michelle B. Cooper. Join me next week in episode 47, where we're going to be talking about putting yourself out there. I'm going to tell you, all of my cringeworthy stories of putting myself out there in all kinds of situations, and the awesome and sometimes embarrassing things that happened. You will not want to miss this episode. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you got at least one gold nugget today. Be sure to grab your copy of the Rich Life Revolution workbook to help you set the foundation for your next level of wealthy. Get it now at richliferevolution.ca, and I'll see you later.